it isn't fair, I think, to take a company that big and say, oh, it's remote friendly, or oh, it's not remote friendly. Microsoft is like 100,000 person companies, or it might even be 1,000 100-person companies. And each one has their own kind of like style. I recommend that people interview the regular way, get as deep as they can into the process, convince them that you're necessary, that you're required, that you're the best, and then bring the remote issue up. And if they love you so much that they can't imagine not living without you, then they will hire you as remote. They brought the remote thing up. They thought the offer would disappear. But then they said, well, I could come and live in Redmond for 2 months in an apartment, and then I would be remote. So they compromise, they negotiate, and then that worked out.
I think you need to start with your marketing. You don't want to start with the community, because the community is kind of one of these chicken and egg problems where the whole value of a community is the people inside of it. You only go to a community because you think there's going to be other people in the community who can help you out or talk to you or provide some sort of value to you. And so it's really hard to just start with nothing because there's nobody in the community up front. So with Indie Hackers, I started off by doing interviews and providing like helpful content for people to read. And that formed the cornerstone of the community. I had many thousands of people coming to the website before I ever tried to build some sort of community where people were talking to each other. And that made it way easier for me to get the community off the ground. Dev is another example. Ben Halpern, the founder of Dev, spent years just growing a Twitter account.
It's been really interesting to explore different environments because before Atlassian, I was working for a consultancy. So the nature of the work was quite different because instead of being really involved in one product, I basically was assigned to a team every few months. Sometimes it was only a 3-month project, sometimes it was 6, sometimes a year. But it means that when you join a company to help them for a few months, you're not really part of their team. Like you end up being responsible for a part of a company's product, but you're not really part of the team. Like you help them only on a small part. But the main difference and the main challenge for me has been the size of the code base. Jira has more than millions of lines of code, so it's been quite different.
The thing that's interesting is that Git doesn't have a backlog. There's nothing where the maintainer says, this is the vision I have for Git. And there were some scale problems we were running into because at that point we had not built it strong enough to withstand the Windows repository, which now the Windows OS repository is running in Git on Azure repos. And you could run the test suite and see what has been covered or not. Now, if you run that on the Git code base, you're going to find a lot of lines are not covered, partly because this philosophy that, we try to cover the main scenarios and some of the error scenarios. But then we need to take those ideas and connect them to how is the community going to respond to these ideas? How can we make them as beneficial as possible for everyone? Junio Hamano is the maintainer, and he definitely does have the final say in terms of which commits get into the releases.
The founders at some point decided that they want to sell the company, and that's when I started looking for a new job because the buyers didn't want to buy the team, only the product and the customer base. If you have many dependencies to other services, then it can become pretty hairy pretty quickly. So it's nice to have a specific team for that. I think we did discuss measuring something like code coverage at some point, but then I think we didn't want to focus too much on a single metric. We all know about our own fallibility. Like, we all know that this is an obvious fix were famous last words. I remember the days before I knew everything. So this sort of humility is kind of built into the company culture.
When I was in college, I met my co-founder Fazil, and both of us, we divided our tasks. So I told him that he has to do the UI side of things, design things, learn CSS, and I restricted myself to backend development.
So you're building this product and you're launching it, and then you're also moving across the country.
When we were ready, the market just crashed, and no one was interested in digital tokens. sometimes I feel really good about myself, and a lot of times I think I don't know anything. So that's how a life of developer is. Yeah, so the best decision was rewriting Hashnode in Next.js. We encourage people to email us about security vulnerabilities. If you know when to take a break and utilize that time by reading something cool, something new, that will be really, really helpful for us.
They used to be just like, we trust you. If you write code, just push it. But now we're a little bit more cautious in that regard, and we actually do the code reviews now. To all those out there, figure out what you do want and figure out what you are working towards, not just to have that certain position so that way you can say, yay, I've made it, but know that your worth is not just in your work, but in your whole self, and bring your whole self to work. Being able to make jokes to kind of make someone's careers or days or even just a couple minutes just that much better, it's a privilege to be able to do.
Want to hear more? Subscribe to the Software Engineering Unlocked podcast. Find it on iTunes or via se-unlocked.com.